My name's Elaina Farnsworth, and I'm the CEO of SkillFusion. SkillFusion is a company that focuses on helping people move into the world of electric vehicle and skill trades. When computers first entered the scene, there was a little girl in a small town that thought they were fascinating, and I just couldn't get enough of them. And I took my love for playing games at my mom's university. She was a professor at a college, and she would go and give exams in the summer, and she would put me in the computer room so that I could go play games, which turned into a love for technology, which turned into a how can I break these computers or fix these computers? And that took me to getting my master's degree in computer science. I started as a graduate student doing a thesis on how could I take a computer system that had finance in a hospital and how could I network all these computers together. That quickly turned into doctors that saw me and said, wait a second, if she can network all these computers together and we can develop software to do this, could we develop software to do that? I started creating software that could talk to other things. How can you make a computer talk to a cell phone? How can we use communication protocols to fix things that are happening in the world with technology? So that took me into this world now that I've spent the last 25 years, which was training. Taking complex systems that seem scary and out of control, putting them into small, manageable pieces so that people can digest the pieces, understand the next step to get to a new career. That again took me into the world of emergency response, defense, and training, which is where I came up with the concept with a team called microtracks. And that means very specifically what it sounds like, little bitty pieces of learning to be able to get people to the point where they can be successful in new technologies by doing one step at a time, one track at a time, one small thing at a time. You take a big problem, you break it into manageable solutions and training, and then you can get people into a pathway to succeed in that field. And that's where I started. The world is changing now, and we need more energy. So many of these alternative energy sources from the grid are what will keep us competitive on a global scale. So as we need more computer processing, we need more data centers, we need more energy, we need more sources of energy because our grid in its current capacity will not scale to the capabilities that we need over the next 5 years, but even 2 years down the way. Now, why is that important for the skilled trades? Because you cannot build and you cannot have these renewable energy capacities without the workers to make sure that they're installed properly, connected properly, and maintained properly. And a lot of folks, when they hear renewable energy, they think, oh, I have no skill in that. However, getting started, to my point earlier, is the most important part. So we have a need for 800,000 more electricians. We need 80,000 a year to just keep up with where this is going. That's an electrician. We need a pipeline of people that aren't electricians that are considered non-electrical technicians. You can be a technician that looks to get into that world by doing preventative maintenance. That's something called preventative maintenance. Same thing with electric vehicle charging stations. Many times we will get a call and someone will say it's not working, where kid was riding his bike and saw a button and was like, let me push that. It wasn't an electrical issue, but it was a maintenance issue that really needed the assistance of a person to go out, be on site, assess the situation, and then to be able to fix that. So because we're having new devices come online every day, we're having new energy sources developed every minute, and we have a huge deficit in skilled trades, you can get into the pipeline now, have that micro track to get into a full track of learning so that you can get into a fundamental capability. Then you can move through to something like a registered apprenticeship, then going through all the way to becoming a master skilled tradesperson that can, in our world, in the electric vehicle industry, the EVITP, which is the Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Training Program. That's for an electrician that has 8,000 hours worth of work. And all of those are real world examples of the amount of skilled tradespeople that we need in the next 5 years to install and make our country and our world competitive. Failure to start and the fear of not knowing where to start keeps people stuck. And I've noticed that if you can overcome, or when individuals, particularly in the areas of that have higher needs, if they have the confidence to just get started, they quickly realize that the ability to keep going is a lot easier than what they feared. And it's that, let's just get started, meet me where I am, and take me where I need to go. That is the best way to succeed and overcome that fear. One of the things that I think is a big misconception about cyber is that, it's impossible to get in, or you have to have a computer science background. There's several levels of entry points into the cyber realm, and we need people to start at the beginning, get certifications to be able to then get into these higher order thinking. The pipeline is not big enough for cybersecurity professionals, so we really need to encourage people to step out of their comfort zone. Take a couple of classes like ethical hacking. Ethical hacking is it's a very good starting credential, a starting certification that you can get. And then if something is interesting to you in cyber, then there are multiple other credentials that you can stack, which is something that we promote both in the skilled trades and the other trades. But in any profession, stacking credentials is really a good way to start, and particularly in cybersecurity. The ethical hacker certification, that's a non-technical credential. CompTIA is a great place to start. There are Security Plus, there are different ramps. There's also a lot of DoD recommended security if you're in the military, or if you're in an active military capacity that you can stack on top of one another. But I also recommend just non-cyber credentials, because that's something that's very specialized, is getting something like an SAE certificate, or getting into an apprenticeship, which will allow you to have not only a pathway for pure cyber, so you may not want to be a hacker, you may not, but getting those basic certifications to get into knowing how to recognize an attack. Maybe not necessarily be the hacker, but how can you mitigate the risk for the attack? There was a situation that was a cyber breach, but it was a physical attack. So there are software breaches, but there are also attacks that can come in the form of a cyber physical system. In this region, the transportation professionals started seeing that there was a tremendous amount of traffic at this one particular point in time. And they started doing an analysis, and they were looking at what's going on here, what's going on there. And as they were looking at the computers, they couldn't figure out what was going on. Well, it took a person that was driving the route that went out in their car to figure out that a former employee had taken a key and had opened all the boxes and had physically programmed it at the certain time when they went to work for all the lights to be green. So it was a physical movement where an individual, for his own benefit, created havoc in a city because he needed to get to work on time. So, as much as that doesn't seem like it would be a cyber attack, that's another example of how having a fundamental knowledge of cybersecurity, even as a skilled trade, is very important, because that was a real world example of what can happen when there's a breach. Whether it's a physical system or a software system, things aren't operating the way they should. I really want to encourage diversity in this industry. I want to encourage women and people of color to be into this space, because we just don't have enough representation. There was a TV show called The X-Files. They did a study, and the study was, why was there an uptick in female engineers suddenly at the end of the 90s? And Harvard and some of the other universities started doing research and interviewed many of these engineers, and found out that there was a phenomena called the Scully effect. Now, Agent Scully was a female, and she was on TV with all the little girls, including myself, sitting around the television going, well, if Agent Scully can do it, I can too. And so just getting more people and more women into the industry doesn't just put one woman into the success path. It gives a light to those other young girls and to those other people that may think that this is not for them. It allows individuals to get excited about the potential, because if Agent Scully can do it, if Elaina Farnsworth can do it, I can do it too. And that is something that we really have to do as mentors, we really have to do as people, is to promote diversity in this industry, because there's such a deficit of need. We need as many people as we can to come together to fix this problem. Renewable energy is a very personalized regional activity. So for instance, in one area of the country, California, for instance, there are a lot of assets. In another area of the country, there may not be as many assets, such as Alabama. They don't have as many assets as California. However, there are tremendous investments going on over the entire United States now to get these renewable assets online. So anybody that is interested in pursuing a career pathway should really just do a little bit of research on how many EV chargers are in my region. And there's a ton of free, you can use chat, you can use Google to find where are the assets that are in my region and how many are there. Because if you don't have very many assets, you may not be able to have a full career just being an EV charging engineer. But you may be an HVAC professional, for instance, which is a parallel pathway. It's a skilled trade that you could add on top of that additional credentials in order to be able to service an entire region. But that regional activity is super important to know when you're getting a trade or you're getting a degree, to know what is the capacity in my region for me to personally be able to contribute, and what are the credentials that I can do right away to get started.